Well, hello, all you quilting friends, all you people who just got home from work, you're bored to death, and you just turned on TV and look what's there. It's us. The Quilting Quartet is real and alive, and we can't wait to share a bunch of stuff with you. Brian, give them a pan of the quartet so they see what's waiting in line for them. Oh my goodness. Now, let me tell you a little bit, the camera may roam, you never know where we're going to be. Here's what happened. The four of us have gotten together for about 9 years, we think. And as we don't know exactly how many years, but we think it's been about 9, don't you guys? That we sew together for a week each year. And we've done it sometime in secrecy. And we'll may explain that and we may not. But what we found out is as we started getting together, I mean, we've talked about everything. We talk about family, we talk about business. We all kind of met through Bernina because we either in one way or another, we worked for them, with them. I was a dealer, Nina was an educator, Sarah was a district manager, and Gayle was a vice president. Of course, she was a little bit higher up than most of us, but nonetheless, this is really how it all came about. But the good side of all of this is we realized how lucky we were. Like during COVID, we even managed to get together, even though it was the this same time frame after everything opened or happened in February. And we really were very good. We were masked up. We didn't even hug or anything. Then we were all vaccinated. Then this time we were just having a big old party, got back together. But we got serious the other night, and which doesn't happen very often, but we did get serious about how lucky we are that we get to come together in a situation like this. And we started talking about the amount of experience in this room. And we added up the 250 years. Now, that's not how old we are, folks. I guess it is in the long run, isn't it? And, I'm one of the younger ones. No, that's not true. But what it was how many years of sewing experience we have had. But we decided that instead of leaning on quilting or sewing, which we all do, that we would focus more on creativity. Don't you guys think that's sort of what we came up to the conclusion? Yeah, and of course, that's where this came from, because this is real creative, isn't it, folks? We quilt, we do some knit, some machine quilt, some run business, some do ruler work, some, Gayle does a lot of lacy stuff and really fine stuff, which you're going to see. But here's the bottom line. We all did come together through the channel of Bernina. But what we found out is there's anyone out there watching this that goes, oh, I want to sew like that. I want to get with my friends like that. Or I want those big sewing machines. You can gather in the back of your car if you needed to. You can gather in the church, a meeting hall. You can gather anywhere. But we felt the key was to share our own experiences. We've each learned, I think, from each other. We've grown. We've gotten real sassy over the years. But what I've gotten out of it the most, I look forward to it, quite frankly, like you would maybe your family vacation. And what we thought we would do is spend a little time today. Now, we're open for Q&A. So you can ask anybody in here any question. And as we go around the room, each one of us is going to tell you, they'll tell you a little bit about themselves, what their focus is or was. And don't think if you see what we're doing that that's all we do, because we do a lot of stuff. And I could tell you a story about everybody in this room, but we may not have that much time because I don't know if the camera battery is going to last that long. But I'm going to introduce you to our first person who's going to talk to you. And Gayle and I have known each other, I would suppose we met, of course, through Bernina. And maybe I've known Gayle the longest, and I've worked with Sarah on a different level as a district manager, and then Nina just popped up one day. I don't even know how that happened.
I'm just glad I appeared.
She just fell into our life, and we love it. But Gayle is, I'm going to let her talk, and then whatever she doesn't say, I'll come back in and interject. So Miss Gayle Hillert is going to take the reins now and tell you a little bit about her and what she does.
When we started thinking about this, we talked about having a journey through life. How did we get from point A to point B? And we're at point B right now. So I started out teaching as an English teacher, then went and became a guidance counselor, and then stayed home for a while and had my 2 children. And then a friend offered me to go into business together. And that sounded interesting. So we started a needle workshop. And from there, we took on Bernina's, and that's when my life changed totally. And the journey,
We know about that.
and the journey continues by going and being a sewing specialist, which meant that I was an educator, and I traveled all over the country and taught consumers. And then I became director of training, and then, as Kay so graciously put it, a VP. After that, I worked in Switzerland, and that was really wonderful for 2 years full-time on projects, and I was known as senior project manager. Don't know if they knew when my hair was going to go gray or what, but what was so wonderful about it is that it was a joyful job because I got to speak to consumers and experts in quilting to talk about how a quilt machine should be developed. And then I worked with the brilliant engineers in Switzerland, and the machine was developed and produced. And then I spent a few years there and actually used the R word, retired, but I call it refocused, because then I went from producing and developing machines to actually working a lot on them. And that's what we're going to talk about now.
Well, which machine was that? What
That
machine?
was an 8 series.
Oh, so for all those you love the 8 series, here's the mother, the mother tester.
There were a lot of people that helped with that, but before that, it was working on some of the other Berninas as well, because Berninas started listening to the consumer, and that was just a wonderful thing that we were able to get input into the development. So as Kay said, I like to do lacy things. I do home deck, I do machine French sewing. I do quilt-like maneuvers. I would not call myself a quilter, but I do like to quilt. And this is a quilt I wanted to show you because it was a quilt that my grandmother did. And Sarah's going to help me with it.
I just love this one. I love this.
Just a bright quilt. It was called a Summer Quilt, and it had no batting. And we found that quilt and another quilt when we were cleaning out my aunt's house. And so I made one for my son, and this is going to be for my daughter for her Christmas present. And you can see that it uses all kinds of fabrics. There's cotton and linen and silk in here, but she wasn't
wonky.
Yeah, wonky. Yeah, and then I added some onto it. But I wanted to share with you how I quilt it, because I would probably never finish a quilt today if I didn't put it in the hoop on the embroidery machine and quilt it that way. So I make the quilt sandwich, and for example, these are 2 blocks that I would put in a hoop, and it took 13 minutes to do this, and then I went all over the quilt and quilted everything, and the stitches just like a long arm, kind of.
It's wonderful. So you just move the hoop, and then you don't have to, I mean, you're just hooping and
I actually move the fabric. I keep the hoop on my machine. I never take it off, and I just move the fabric around, and because you can position it, it works really
Now,
well.
we're not doing hands-on, but that's a great tip, folks.
Well, your Bernina dealer can probably show you how
Perfect.
to do it. But, so, what I do is make a quilt sandwich, but before I do that, I think every quilt has a story. And when you make a quilt label this big, you can tell the story.
Isn't this to die for?
So I do a quilt label that extends throughout the entire quilt. And this one is very special because it's for my daughter. So when I quilted it, and it was pieced in 1930s to 40s by great-grandmother Ella Payne Anderson. And so she'll have that always, and it tells the story. This is also a piece
I just think
of-
it's stunning.
It's just so fun.
Well, it's fun. And this is a piece of the original quilt. She put whatever she had on the back, and that's why I love this quilt so much. And it's because that's how quilting started. You used up what you had. So that's that one.
Does Erin know she's getting this?
No, and she's probably going to listen to this show.
Hi,
Erin.
Erin, it's not really you. It's another Erin.
It's my Erin. It's my
It's
Erin.
she has an Erin. It's
my
her Erin. Okay.
So moving on from there and continuing with my life in Virginia. Virginia is where I live right now, and giving having all the opportunity that we have to work on the machines and be creative, and then to travel to Kay's house every year. This was a quilt, actually, and we're going to turn it over, that Kay was doing online for which class?
It was our Civil War Legacy class for you patchwork staycationers.
And Kay, the overachiever that she is, decided to make quilts to prepare for this class, and she had 3 that she didn't know what to do with, and she brought them out and she said, would any of you like these quilt tops? And we all looked at each other, and I said, I'll take them.
And Gayle got the black.
Right.
Black
Gayle
and
got
red.
the black one.
They
But there's
fought
a
over the
reason
black
that there
and
are
red one,
3 of
yes.
us,
You
and there's a
snooze, you
reason that
lose.
she made 3. Yeah.
So I
Nose
told,
question.
I got the quilt, and then Nina said, well, I'll quilt it. And Nina's going to tell you about her special talents. So we had this random quilt block just sitting here, and I said, well, I'll make the label. So this was during COVID. So I wanted to make sure that that was on the label somewhere. So it says Friendship 2020, because in 2020, you had to work for your friendship. You didn't see someone at the store or in a meeting or whatever. You had to call that person up and say, how are you doing? So friendship in 2020 was extremely important. So then it says Design and Piecing by Kay England. And then Nina will tell you the story, but it's Quilting
I love this part.
by the famous Nina McVeigh. So Nina put it all together, and she put the quilting
Well,
on.
let's show them the front, and then Nina can explain that. Now, for those of you looking while Gayle tells you, this is a program that is living on YouTube, and if any of you go, wow, I wish I'd made that, all you have to do is go on YouTube, look under Patchwork Staycation, find the Civil War Legacy, and you too can make one. It lives there permanently.
And it was a wonderful gift.
And then so you sort of bribed or begged or just sent it to her, to Nina. How'd you get Nina to quilt it?
Nina just stood there and said, well, if you want me to quilt it, I will. And
What was I thinking?
I don't know. I don't know, but I was glad you were thinking it.
I think I said if you're willing to wait a year.
And Nina, what did you think when it came with that label on it? See, she
Well-
didn't know about the label.
No, I took this home, and then when the label came and I opened it up, and I thought, oh my gosh, no pressure at all with that label on the back. So let me just tell you the story about the famous Nina McVeigh. That would be me.
Great story.
One of my granddaughters at about the age of 7 had a few little friends over, and they were in her room, and I, of course, had made a quilt for her bed, and the little girls were all oogling and ogling about it, and my granddaughter said, well, my grandma made that. She's famous, you know. And the little girls just kind of looked at her, and Anna said, well, I'm going to say her name, and surely you will have heard of her. So she said, Nina McVeigh. And they just all looked at her. And so she said, well, if you don't know her, you will. So that's the story. That all came
I
about.
love it. Everybody needs an Anna in their life,
They
don't
do.
they?
They do. But this really means a lot to have been able to quilt this for Gayle and to also have Kay's name on the back. Gayle and I go back much further probably than any of the rest of us. Actually, Gayle sold me my first Bernina sewing machine 35 years ago, and I taught a little bit at the shop that she had. And about 4 years after I bought my sewing machine, she was such a good salesperson that she sold me her shop.
Gosh, I wish I'd thought
I
of
know.
that.
So when Gayle went to work for Bernina, I started with the shop, and I did that for 15 years, and then I went to work for Bernina, and Gayle was my boss. So our lives have been connected a lot. As I said, I did teach classes in her store. My background is education, preschool education. So I remember one summer working for her, and I had preschoolers in the morning. I had kids sewing in the afternoon, and I believe Gayle's daughter was even in some of those classes. And then I had adult education at night, and really, it was kind of all the same, just maybe different toys, but all the same. So that's my journey up to Bernina. As an educator for Bernina, even though I never thought of myself as just a quilter, because I also like to do heirloom sewing and garment sewing and all sorts of things, I did become, my focus did become quilting, and really it led to such an incredible opportunity because I too was involved in the research and development of our long arm machine. And so I got the opportunity to work with people in Switzerland, the engineers, and we did a lot of testing, and a lot of testing. I think for 4 years, I would go over several times a year for 4 years until that product was released. So I'm just, again, I have become a long armer because of that experience. So I was able to long arm this for.
But you know, Nina, real quick, I want to ask you, you said something yesterday or today before, and you were talking about you never thought of yourself as being creative, and yet look at what's fallen into your life and what you've done with that.
Well, right. And I think for a lot of people, nobody ever tells you you're creative, so you don't think of that. And I think we need to look at ourselves and say, look what we've done, and that we are, whether it's with sewing or, as I think Gayle said in the beginning, you know, just you can be creative in so many different ways, whether you're a cook or a gardener. I would really admire anybody who wants to experiment and practice that creativity in the kitchen. I'll give you my address.
Mine do.
Send it my way. I have a big freezer.
But again, this was quilted on my long arm. With a lot of it is automated quilting. Again, that's another whole
and just look
area.
At that work. It's fabulous.
But some of it's ruler work, and I really like doing that. And I think a good example of that. Now, this was last year that Gayle gave me that. 2 years ago, I always seem to be going home with something from here.
Wonder why.
I hope it's not a goat this year. We're going to hope that doesn't happen. But Kay gave me the this vintage tablecloth.
I love it.
What a great idea.
I loved it.
To be able to take a vintage tablecloth. So many of us have drawers full of linens.
Yep.
And if you just want to quilt them, they take on a whole new dimension.
Isn't that stunning?
So you do have the quilting in the middle. Again, that was automated. And then the ruler work, which ruler work is a free motion technique using rulers. So that brings me to what I have been doing for the better part of this year. And that is I have developed a ruler line, or I'm beginning to develop a ruler line. So I brought my first set of rulers down here so we could play with them.
Yay! First set of rulers!
So I've started a company called Nina McVeigh Designs, and I am working on my website. I am working on getting more rulers developed. I have many ideas in my head, so those things are coming. My website should be up and running, ninamcveigh.com. It'll be in the
just say down below.
Down below, whatever that is down there. It should be there, and it should be up and running in about 30 days. So give me an opportunity to get that done. But I did bring them down because Sarah wanted to play with them, and so we've been doing that this week.
Now, before you do that, I want you to tell them about what you were doing this week and how you got so much done with the quilts that you brought, because you were going to share those.
My quilts?
Uh-huh.
Both of them?
Well, I want you to tell them, though, how long it's been since they've been cut out, and I want you to especially share.
Okay.
And then Sarah's going to go on with a tie-in to that, but I think this is so valuable.
As a shop owner,
yes,
some of my customers may have done this
maybe
about 20 years ago.
Maybe they'll share it with us.
But I had this all cut out. It was actually a mystery quilt, and it was a mystery to me if it was ever going to get done. But I did have that all prepared and ready to go, so that was a fun one.
That's one of the projects that she did this week.
But the project that really brought me a lot of happiness and joy, my stepmom did some applique blocks for me. She took fabric from my store and she did some applique blocks more than 20 years ago.
Amazing.
Well, she is going to, and I never did anything with them. She is going to be turning 100
Can you believe
this
that?
November. So I decided I needed to get those blocks out.
Love this.
And get them put together, and we all decided that this is a very happy quilt. So
Isn't that just
it
the
just
cutest
gave me a
thing?
lot of joy to finish it.
I just love it. And then you'll do your
I'll
fancy,
do my
fancy
thing
quilting
on this. I have to do a border and all of that, but
But the
Yeah.
key is, folks, if you don't have all your work done, don't panic. Look, you can do it 20 years from now.
well, and before we go to Sarah, that's been one of my things too. I think that for a lot of us who do this kind of thing, sometimes we get frustrated because we can't get it done. We just cannot seem to get anything done. But if you take 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, just set that time aside and do a little bit, even if it's not a whole block, it's half a block. Well, in 2 days you have a whole block. And so just do a little bit at a time, you know, just keep chipping away and pretty soon you have something to put together. So with that, I'm going to pass this off to Sarah.
All righty, all righty.
Do you want to do questions?
Oh,
Kat?
All right, Miss Sarah, let it go.
Well, this
we
is-
got a bunch of questions now, and we'll get back to those.
You can
'cause-
scroll all the way to the
and I'm
top.
tracking all of them, so
Okay.
don't give up.
Okay, so I'm Sarah. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. We call it the frozen tundra for many different reasons, except for this summer when it's been around 100. And I have had an amazing opportunity with all of these creative women. I graduated from college, and you know, those jobs that you just had to kind of like take. I was a tailor in a sweatshop in a wonderful independent clothing store, and learned a lot from these amazing tailors that I did get to work with. After that, I was a manager in a specialty store and spent about 20 years in department store marketing, buying, anything from large size sportswear all the way to housewares. Cutlery was my favorite, consequently my addiction, I guess, to scissors of all kinds. Dovo are my favorite, just FYI. Was with Bernina for 30 years as a district manager. My husband was also in department store buying. We were able to move all over the country, and so consequently with Bernina, I've been able to travel all over the world, which one of these days when COVID actually does go away, I'm going to start traveling internationally. That's the main goal of retirement. The other goal is to get all those projects done, like Nina. I have the project boxes stacked in my closet, and this spring, because of COVID and because of being in the frozen tundra, I have made 8 quilts and another one that I will talk about in just a minute. But since I've made all those quilts, and I've also become enamored with multimedia, with the women that I have met, the women and the men that I have met through Bernina and through all the travels that I've been able to do, is I love trying new things and mixing textures, mixing fabrications, learning about felting, about roving, about llama roving, which I have bags of in my house. So that llama from all the llamas from Kay's are going to be felted at some point in time. I had to get all the baby quilts done first because kids are now 3 to 5, so those had to go out first. I also love working on leather. That's my latest passion type thing, mixing it with all different kinds of things. So I just started making little things out of leather, and you know what? You can actually quilt in the hoop on leather.
I'm amazed she did that. She
I know.
quilted on the leather.
I know. It is just so fun. And so to find different, Gayle and I, or Nina and I actually got lost in a leather store.
Gail and I had to hunt them out, didn't
Right.
we, Gail?
They helped us out.
They helped us because they left us alone, and we got.
We didn't leave you alone on purpose. Y'all were hiding under leather.
We were
Try
hiding.
on shoes while we were waiting.
So making purses, making.
She actually
wonderful
made
little
that
things.
purse, folks, out
You
of
know,
leather.
but it's.
Out of her own head. I mean,
Out of-
that wasn't
No
even a
pattern, she just sewed
So
something
it
up.
has pockets, and it's amazing what you can do with a Bernina. Let me just tell
I'd like
you.
to have one of those with my initials on
I-
it. Wouldn't you
I think
guys?
a monogram would be
Monogram
Yeah.
would be nice.
Well, the monogram. Okay, so other things in the hoop, and then
She did
I know.
great.
Look at this. I love making just little stuff. So now that I get to sew 12 hours a day instead of working 12 hours a day, I get to do these kind of things.
Oh, and she gave us all one of these. Look how cute these are. Is that the cutest?
So this is my latest thing, because when you retire and you get to clean out your stash
Isn't that the cutest thing?
and your office and all of those boxes of trims and stabilizer and fabrics, I have probably about 10 of these full of stuff. And then, of course, then you need to haul it around. So then you have to make more bags.
Another way. See, she did.
Okay. So anyway,
It's not
so
like
that's
she's a
been-
bag lady or
I
anything.
know,
but
not
we
not at all. Except
at
I
all.
have one favorite purse that I refuse to give up. How's that? And I carry it all the time. Had it for several years. So
Oh,
when we're together,
Sarah, real quick, Sarah, somebody wants to know, did you use the roller foot to make your bag?
it depends on the thickness of the leather and how stiff it is. I didn't for most of these because they're like a purse weight. I do have a couple of pieces that are a little bit more stiff.
It's
and
Sarah
those probably-
Colson, your old dealer,
Oh,
who asked
hey,
that question.
Sarah Colson, how are you? And I, with the machines that I use with the dual feed, it really, I have not had any problem with that. And no, I have not used the roller foot. Sorry, I was looking at her asking a question.
We have to do that. We're
I
supposed
know.
to do that. Yeah.
So, so Nina has given me the beauty of being around these creative women and the dealers that I worked with, the customers that I got to meet, the places that I got to go, is that you guys have all given me permission to play. And that's what all this is. I am playing. I am making a quilt, but it's a Christmas present, and so I'm not going to show it. So that's, another thing. That's in another project box that's over on the bar.
But our family thinks we're working. See,
Well,
that's
of course,
important.
that's it.
Pat's at home thinking we're working, probably.
Right, we are. We're testing machines,
Yeah,
and we're
yeah.
Doing demos and that kind of
teaching.
stuff. Yeah, we're teaching. Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm so good at that.
We're teaching each other, yeah.
And to tell you the truth, that is, I mean, being able to play with Nina's rulers, so that's the next. The next permission I've given myself is to learn how to do ruler work, and 10 minutes a day. We were talking about it today. Is that if I would sit down with just any piece of fabric and use my ruler foot and the rulers that I have collected. There are many.
Well, you know what, Sarah? Here's another question you're going to love, because Mary Miller said,
Hey,
golly,
Mary.
Sarah, I didn't know you were a bag lady. I love that.
And you know what? And the thing about that, Mary, is how many bags did I carry out of your store when we worked together? All your amazing fabric and stuff. So
There you go.
right. But everybody has given me permission to try different things, to mix fibers, to play with leather, to play with craft tex, to play with wool felting, to play with wool. It's amazing that, did you know that you could put wool in washing machine and then you throw it in the dryer and it shrinks?
But you have to take
It's
it off
great.
the animal first.
Well, you have
Yeah.
to take it off the animal.
Oh,
I
yeah.
will come and help with the shearing as long as I get the roving. How's that?
All right, sounds
and
good.
we can felt it.
That sounds good.
So the other thing that I had the opportunity to do this spring, since I have retired, is Kay has done, besides the Civil War Legacy, she's done several other series last year in the spring. One of them was Medallion Mastery, and because I have hung out with her for quite a while.
It's catching, folks.
It is definitely catching it. How long did we figure out? 20 years that I've known
At
you?
least 20, maybe longer.
It's probably about 25. I was Nina's district manager, so I've known Nina for about 25 years also. And through Bernina, she came to my district and taught some of our training. 1630. I still have my 1630 thanks to Gayle and her amazing teaching. I love my 1630 also. But Kay had a series of fabric, or a collection of fabric, called Blackwood Cottage. Okay, guys, it was black and white, and it's amazing. So I did do Blackwood Cottage. And the thing about coming to Kay's is that she always has the next line ready to show you, so that now I have to make another big quilt because I really like this line. And guess what? There's another one after that.
So is this marketing? Is this the time we do the marketing?
You know what? I think that I heard that. I think David's really good.
I love marketing. I love marketing. And our VP of the fabric company, Mr. David Rothschild, hello, I love you. He is going to be all over this. But here before, we've just got to, I'm doing the grips job now. I'm manning.
I noticed you took my job.
Well, I didn't take your job. You let your job go. But I thought you guys would love this. Everybody say hi to Becca Morgan. You all know her. She says she wishes we were with us, and her mother was a dear friend, worked with the company, and is no longer with us. She said, I wish my mom could be with you. That is precious. We've got not old, but long time shop owners in here. Judy Curtis says howdy to everybody. There's a good customer from Cedar Rapids, from a shop that so inspired to sew that I've taught at, as says hi. Come back, honey, I'm retired. Somebody has taken my car keys away from me. I'm done. But you never know when I'll show up, when I get lost or something. Emily says, yay, Nina. Kathy says, oh, I love her. She says, lovely ladies. Nancy says, good for you. Nancy Bednar said, howdy.
Hey,
It just goes on. And one of the things we've had the most question, well, Pat McVeigh asked a question. He did. He belongs to Nina, or Nina belongs to him. I don't know which it is. First of all, he says, what's with all the snacks? What's with all the snacks? And then secondly, a little bit ago, I think it was Karen who said, y'all and Pat could do the cooking, so why didn't you bring Pat? He could have done the cooking.
He could have done the
He probably wouldn't have let us watch.
He needed to stay home with the dog.
We made him watch this, because what's the score of the ball game now?
It was 16-3 last night.
His team's ahead by about 15 points, so you should be watching every second of this thing. Because if you're ahead that far, we're way more important.
No, she said 15 points.
Oh, and Gabrielle, you sweet, precious thing. I love what you just said. These are so many contacts we've made over the years, and this is somebody that we were at quilt markets together years and years ago, and she said, Mama's watching you from heaven. I know that she would love that. What a great idea. Linda from the Yoder's department, from Yoder's in Shipshewana says howdy. And now I'll give it back to you, and you can figure out what else is going on there for this question. We did have a load of questions before we look at the fabric and sort of wrap. Gayle, quite a few people said, I want to know more about the quilting and the hoop. Sure, you could all allude to that. Probably just go online, do a search, ask your local dealer. I mean, I'm sure there's many of people teaching it. I don't know about books on it.
It's the most wonderful way to complete a quilt and not have any pain involved. And everybody thinks it's your talent and it's the machine's.
So you're using the embroidery module on your sewing machine.
Yeah, there are a lot of quilters that like to piece, but my joy in quilting is watching those stitches settle on the fabric. And with your embroidery module, that's what you get to do, is watch those stitches form the texture and the whole design of what it makes the quilt come alive.
And I will tell you, I mean, we weren't set up to do real demos on this, and we know that your dealers are all talented and can do this. So we'd highly recommend that you lean on them and say, hey, show me how to do this. If you can stitch out a t-shirt, you can quilt in the hoop.
I also have to say, Carrie Hay from Australia just said hi.
Yay, Carrie from down under. We love that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Brian, how long is your camera going to keep its power so we can folks, those of you with us on Patchwork Staycation, Brian, the cameraman, takes a lot of heat, and we've given him ample amount. For example, he loves the fact that I dress up like this, and when we walked in and I told the girls, I said, ask Brian, just wait and see what he says when he sees it. He said, I wouldn't expect anything else. So, but many of you who've worked with us on our programs on Patchwork Staycation also know that Brian has another job, and that's playing music. And thank goodness that is at least coming back a little bit. So for all of you whose jobs have gone out the window, just hang tight and know that with some luck, this will come back. But he's not been as available, so consequently, for those of you who are signed up with our current program, the Spikes and Peaks, we've been just a little bit laid back about getting back with you. And that's why when all the girls were here, I thought, why not use them? They're here sleeping in my house, eating my food, messing up stuff. Why not just use them? I thought. And frankly, what?
We are your spikes.
And that's your piece. There is.
So you may interpret that any way you want.
Well, there you go. So for those of you watching and are in the Spikes and Peaks, you go, when is she going to do another program? Here's your program. This is
Hi, guys.
But we do promise we'll be back pretty soon, and we will get caught up. But we know everybody has been knee-deep in trying to do things. Somebody on one of those things said they love these pretzels.
They are
So it must be
good.
somebody
So
from
good.
your neck of the woods.
And I read something else.
Yes.
Probably Pat McVeigh.
See how much fun we're having. Okay.
Leola Hillert bought my first Bernina 1130 from Gayle and more than one Bernina from Nina. We were blessed to have them.
See, we
So,
just,
thank you, Leola.
Thank you.
you know what? This is probably a little commercial too, Bernina. Y'all need to look at what's sitting in this room that y'all don't have anymore. I'll bet you that you
And
would write a big old check to have this. Now, as the Quilting Quartet, we are organizing. We've got Gayle's done the minutes, and she's working on the whole thing. And
We're in harmony.
we're in harmony, not great harmony, but we are in harmony. And she's working on a plan that if you wanted to hire us, it is conceivable. Oh, well, yes, it is. Gayle, come on. I've already.
No, I think we should perform at the theater.
Maybe the trio.
The
This
trio.
quintet.
Now,
No, we should come to the theater.
I have too much to do at home.
how are you going to get rid of the wood wasp if you don't make some money?
Well, we were going to talk about
Okay.
the busyness.
The busyness. Now, I'm going to really give a little plug for Miss Gayle Hillert because she certainly underplays her involvement and her value in a lot of things. But you've lived in Clifton Forge, Virginia for 15 years. I was fortunate enough to visit there with John when they were taking on a new task of renovating an old Masonic hall and a theater. Correct?
Museum.
I never say it right. A museum. I call it a museum. It's a theater. I never get it right. I'm telling you, all you have to do is go online and look at,
www.historicmasonictheater.com.
and I will tell you, know that Gayle's dear husband, John, who we miss, hi John, and had years and years of involvement in this, and it is one of the greatest joys to have had the
So
luxury and pleasure, and all of us have done events there.
And quilt retreats.
And quilt retreats there. But Gayle has been heavily involved in the community and helping run and make this be aware around the world. And they just had a big movie filmed there.
Yeah, Dope Sick.
Dope
Starring
Stick.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton will be in the background somewhere. Hulu. Anytime.
October 13th.
October 13th, the trailer's coming. So, aside from that, if Paul Ashworth's watching, it's conceivable that you might want to put a phone call in. 555-1212-3467. There's an extra number in there. I'm telling you, you folks you couldn't buy this if you tried. Maybe you would. And if you bought it, it's not returnable. That's all I can tell you. It's not returnable.
It is priceless.
It is.
So it would take a chunk of change.
We joke about this, but I tell you, these girls have hauled themselves to the barn. We have kissed and loved on goats. I got 5 little girl goats we're loving on right now. But we are serious about why we would love we're thrilled you tuned in. We hope you've enjoyed it, but we also want you to know that what we're doing is not unusual and that there are people all around the country doing this sort of thing. And if it's something you want to do, you just have to put the energy in, grabbing a few people and saying, by golly, we're going to do that. You can't be the Quilting Quartet because we are. And I think we've already got
Creative Quartet.
Are we the creative quartet? Well, actually, I screwed up. It was supposed to be creative quartet, and we said we weren't going to say quilting quartet, and I got carried away. That's why you. Well, where were you? Where were you when I was doing?
down with the goats.
She was down tending the goats. Oh Lord, you should see them with goats, folks. I'm telling you. Well, anyway, we probably ought to get back to business.
Right.
Were there other great questions someone had for us?
Well, there are quite a few questions, but then we'd have to give away our state secrets.
Well, and really and truly,
No, they're really
your local dealer is your answer to most of these things. All of these girls have websites or are available. You can, or Facebook or whatever, and anything that you need to find is going to be in all those little things below. And Brad, let's show them before, and oh wait,
I got a question. Nina, are the rulers for home machines or long arm machines, or both? From Jan Meacham.
They are 1/4-inch quilting rulers, so they are available for both machines. They would work on domestic and long arm.
fabulous.
They're way cool.
But you know, the questions are great, but I think this shows connection.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
and that's what we try to do. When I left for this trip, I had people ask me, well, what do you do? Well,
Hard to explain, isn't it?
it is hard to explain, but we
Well,
always
Kay is
leave
hard to
feeling like we creatively solved many problems of the world.
Of the world.
We've tried to fix
So
everything.
that would be another reason to hire us.
Yeah. Well, see, I knew you would.
Well, and we'd probably come with a pocket full of peanuts.
Exactly. Oh, that's for the goats. And what we can't fix, we just figure out how to get rid of. Because if we can't fix it, we don't need it. But I do have to brag, because I told my buddy David Rothschild, who is, again, the big VP of Wilmington Princes, who does all my fabrics. So I am sewing on that here, not exceptionally well, because as you can see from the food and other beverages that I'm not really getting as much done as I should. But on the table, Brian's going to kind of pan. My brand new line is called Purple Majesty, and you can go on to WilmingtonPrince.com and just type in the name Purple Majesty, and you'll be able to see it. It's a killer collection. I'm working on this block of the month. Now, the way that Wilmington does their patterns, lots of times it'll have a name for the collection, and then there will be a different name for the block of the month. Now, your local quilt shop makes the decision about whether they bring this line in or not. So they may bring in Purple Majesty, but they may not do the actual block of the month, which is Aubergine. So I've got about maybe 20 of these blocks done, and I think there's about 90. So the Aubergine quilt, Brian's going to try to get a pretty good picture for you of that.
Well, you have someone saying, ooh.
Ooh. Well, I tell you, it's fun, and for every one I've sewn today, I've ripped 2. But I'm going to get this quilt done, and it will travel a bit. The fabric should be in your local quilt shop sometime early November is where it's targeted. But all you have to do is go on to Wilmington to see all the collection, and then you can ask your local quilt shop, did you order that Purple Majesty? Because it's really great stuff.
And beautiful. Ooh, I love your new line of fabric.
Well, good.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
think...
Like your coveralls, they said.
What?
Somebody likes your coveralls.
Do you like my coverall?
Yeah, very
Well,
much.
you know, I'm a farmer, so we tried to dress it up, decorate it, take it home with you. That's the way it works. So... are you going to handle the bookings? Are you going to handle as those start coming? Well, you're the one who's...
She's a stage manager.
Did you see
got
how
the show
quick?
flow.
Gail's real sweet. She's always like, oh, I don't want to do that. And pretty soon she's directing it. Now she wants to do it. So remember, now I know all you Bernina dealers are going to want us because we love all of you and we know y'all are going to want us. We want Switzerland to want us. That's who we want to want us.
So, wait a minute. Switzerland has to allow Americans to travel.
Well,
there.
I don't
That's
mean
what we
today.
do.
I mean later on.
I number again, Kay.
555-123-3745 or something like that. Somebody's going to actually try to call that number. Please don't.
They'll get spammed.
Has anybody got any last minute things before our cameraman gives it up?
No, thank you guys for giving us permission to be creative. And we're giving you permission now also.
And all of you should plan a trip to Kay's.
Oh my gosh, I live in Milwaukee. Rosemary, they're coming to see you. So
We have August, the third week in August. planned.
y'all just come on and show up. I mean, you might want to bring your own camper or something because I'm not sure
But
we'd
the
ever.
main thing we want you to do is plan time with your friends to be creative. That's what we
Yeah.
want you to do. That's what this is all about.
It
It's
is,
just so much
definitely.
fun, and it keeps you learning.
Yeah.
Every day there's something to learn.
Brian,
And you can plan, and you should plan, but get the date on the calendar.
we put it on,
It doesn't happen.
and even if we don't like each other, we have to show up. So we already put it on the calendar. Brian, pan and show him our audience.
Oh,
Look at our audience! This is the cameraman's wife. Julie, weren't we fabulous?
It was fantastic.
Oh,
Very entertaining.
Do you want to learn to sew now instead of sending your
I-
buttons over here?
I just want to hire you all.
There's our first booking. There's our first
And what was
booking.
that number again?
I don't even know how to tell you folks. I do love Spikes and Peaks and I love being with you, but this has been a blast. Thank you so much for looking in. And remember, Brian will get this all tweaked up or whatever he does, and it'll be on YouTube. We can still answer questions when it pops up on YouTube, so don't think because we're getting out of here that we can't still take your questions. All the girls will check in. Feel free to ask specific questions, and Brian thinks it'll be probably even later tonight or in the morning when it posts on YouTube. So our channel is youtube.com/KEngland, and you'll be able to spot this and still ask us questions. So should we sing? What's that song Roy Rogers sang? Happy Trail. Oh, because we're a quartet. My goodness. Until we meet again. Bye.